Okay, loves. So I can get really nostalgic about certain things. And I grew up watching Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune with my family. And then obviously Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, which is going to bring us into our guest this week. And it's not because I want to talk about Who Wants to Be a Millionaire on the show, but I actually want to talk about someone's journey to achieving their big ass goals. And I think that sometimes we can get a little like in the weeds with things, or we can also maybe not actually push ourselves to actually go for the things we think. We've just started to listen to other people or ourselves and think it's never going to happen to us. And so our guest today, Phil Barth, he actually had a goal. He got curious about something, decided to do it, and then he worked his ass off for several years to make it happen. And I just wanted to share his journey, what he learned along the way, what he did after, and what he's doing now. And I think it's so fun to hear stories like this because hopefully you can picture yourself in the same situation with whatever it is you're going after. And so now let's listen to Phil Barr's story. Welcome to the Be It Till You See It podcast, where we talk about taking messy action, knowing that perfect is boring. I'm Lesley Logan, Pilates instructor and fitness business coach. I've trained thousands of people around the world, and the number one thing I see stopping people from achieving anything is self-doubt. My friends, action brings clarity, and it's the antidote to fear. Each week, my guests will bring bold, executable, intrinsic, and targeted steps that you can use to put yourself first and be it till you see it. It's a practice, not a perfect. Let's get started. All right, Be It Babes. Oh, I'm really excited about this because our guest today, he is, well, he'll tell you his story, but when I saw what he has accomplished in his life, I was like, oh, I've watched that show. I'm going to, and so I was like, took it down memory lane, and I was like, I have to talk to him because first of all, not only has he accomplished a lot, but he has learned so much along the journey. And I wanted to share that with you all because I think sometimes we get so obsessed with the goal, we forget that the journey has a lot to teach us. So Phil Barth, thank you so much for being on the Be It Pod. Can you tell everyone who you are and what you do?
Sure. As you mentioned, my name is Phil Barth. I am a speaker, author. That's my side gig. I still work in the computer world, in the IT world, as a geek, basically. The show you're talking about was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I'm sure we'll get into that, but you probably don't remember the episode, but that's okay.
Yeah. That would be hard. There was a lot, and it would depend.
I know, right?
Is it still on? I think it's still on.
It is still on. And what I've seen now, they don't do it for Millionaire, but some of the game shows, I don't know why would do this, except for the game show nerds like myself. They're putting episodes out on, I believe it's Amazon Prime Video. So you can see old episodes of the 70s game show Match Game, and there's a couple more. So who knows? Someday I might be out on Amazon Prime.
That's amazing. You have to put that on your resume.
I totally will. If it's on there, here's the link. Go check it out.
I love that so much. I would tell people, like, when I was getting started and doing commercials and everything, I'm like, oh, I was in a Dropbox ad, which is true. It was not ever on TV. It was only an ad on the internet, though. So, but who knows? They have it forever, so it could be used in different ways.
It still counts. It absolutely counts.
So, okay. So, first of all, like, what got you into even wanting to do the show? Like, I feel like we have to go back a step.
yeah, it's a good idea. So it was, the show came out August of 99, and I had read articles in the paper. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so August of 99, I remember I'm at the Marriott in Stanford, and I walk into my room. I'm like, oh, it's almost time for that show I read about. So I turned it on, and I'm watching it. I'm thinking, I could kind of do this because it's multiple choice, right? You always have a guess. Jeopardy, I sit there and watch these guys like, bam, bam, bam. How do they know this, right?
I know. I can only watch Teen Jeopardy, and even then I get a half wrong.
I like watch the first half before the questions get too difficult. I'm like, I'm out of here. But I was like, I could do that. And that was the thought, right? And then at the end, they said, hey, if you want to be a contestant on Millionaire, dial this 800 number. Well, that's easy enough. So I dialed, and every night they had a an audition, basically. 3 questions. You had to put things in order from oldest to newest, newest to oldest, east to west, whatever. And if you got them right, you went into a drawing for one of 10 spots on the show. Now, every night, 200,000 people were calling in. So the odds were 1 in 20,000.
Yeah.
But that didn't stop me, right? All of a sudden I had this vision that I'm going to be on that show. And I know part of it was because my grandmother loved the show from the start. And when she passed away, I'm like, oh, this would be a great way to remember my grandmother, right? But if it had been Who Wants to Be 100 era, I don't think I would have had that
right.
had that drive, right? There was that promise of riches. And the other thing that happened was, of course, I watched the show every single day because that's part of, I wanted to see myself in that hot seat. So I had to watch
that's
others.
such an interesting thing, because I would think people would watch it just to like get used to the questions, but you were also picturing yourself being in the chair. Yes.
Exactly. And so one night I'm watching it and somebody won $250,000 and quit at the $500,000 question. I knew every single question, including the $500,000 question on that particular set. And I'm like, holy cow. Now I could really see myself, doing the backstroke in all these dollar bills and so on. Right. So it's like,
I love that you would visualize you're going to swim in the money.
Woo, throwing the dollar bills up. Right. So it became an obsession. And when I speak on this subject, I say there's a fine line between being obsessed with something. I forgot the other half of it.
Being passionate.
That's it. Thank you. Fine line between passion and obsession, right? And obsession's got a bad rap. Your obsession. You're going to be they're going to have to put a restraining order on you. Blah blah blah. But if you're really obsessed with something, and you cross over that line, there are payoffs when you make it your goal. People call it a BOHAG, big old hairy. Look, I call it a big old hairy ass goal. Other people, there's a nicer name for but that's what it is, right? It is your BOHAG. You want it so bad. And so I watch a show every day. Every time there was a phone audition to call in, I was in there, right? And then eventually, I never passed on the phone. I never passed the audition, never made it to the finals to get on the show. So the next thing that happened was they had in-city audition. So I auditioned in Chicago and failed. And then I drove to Indianapolis for an audition and failed. And I always tell the story of on the way home, I stopped at Taco Bell. I don't recommend this for anyone. And had a Taco Bell Grande burrito and a Mountain Dew to fuel me on the way home. And I got home at about 2 a.m. and threw up the Taco Bell. And so in my mind, it's like, well, I have suffered for the cause. They're going to give me I'm going to get the little card in the mail that says, you made it. That's not how it worked.
We don't have to suffer for the cause to get the card. We don't have to.
No.
But to quickly interrupt, I just want to say,
sure.
I think correct. There is a downside to obsession that can be a little bit, but like if you're obsessed with a goal and that is something that isn't going to hurt anybody else, it's just awesome for you. Right. There is a difference. I think sometimes people are more of a bystander in their own goal. They're passionate. They like it. That it would be nice to have it, but there's the jumping over that line to being like so focused on it to actually drive to 2 different cities to do in person. You make me think of the kids who did like American Idol and they auditioned like 7 times,
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And you're going after it. And so what I did finally, there was a space of time between the Indianapolis and the next audition, which was in Cleveland, Ohio. And I learned. Right. I went out to Google wasn't huge back then, but there were message boards, et cetera. And so I was like, I'm going to find out what people are doing to pass this audition, because obviously what I'm doing isn't working. And so I spent some time, I investigated, I learned. And what I learned was a couple of things. The first thing they do with any Who Wants to Be a Millionaire audition is they give you a set of questions, multiple choice questions, all of which have already played on the show. So I was able to pass the test because I just remembered what I had watched. Then they take you into another room, those who pass the test, and they give you an audition form, which is a bunch of small answer questions, essay questions types, and a pencil. And so what I learned was just because they give you a pencil doesn't mean you have to use the pencil. So in Cleveland, I came there with a red marker, a highlighter, a 4-color pen, etc. And I dropped them on the table when I did it. And the guy sitting next to me looked at that, looked at his pencil, he looked at me, he goes, ah, shit. Yes, and you cannot borrow my stuff, right? So what you, and the second thing is you write on there what you want them to know about you. So when in between questions, when Meredith Vieira is asking you a human interest story type question, you've got something that will play. And so I wrote that in red ink. And the producer comes in, looks at the red ink, asks me about the question. We have a great conversation. 2 weeks later, I got the card in the mail. You're in the contestant pool, and I wound up on the show.
So first of all, this is okay. So you did something different than what they were suggesting. And everyone, I think you need to, it doesn't matter what you're trying to do. This is very key. A couple times I can think about it in my own life is one, we were trying to get a global entry card. And, and Brad, the way he filled out the applications, he did all of our stuff in all caps. So when we went in for the interview, they knew we were together. So like they're like, oh, you guys are together. They like did the whole thing. Here you guys go. It was like really this interesting thing. Brad's like, yeah, I always do it all caps because it'll stand out amongst the list of people when they're going through. So if you're filling out something online, you can do all caps. It's not going to affect anything. The other thing that I did was when I got my first commercial, I had done 0 auditions. I had done 0 classes. I just went. And the only thing that I did was I heard them ordering lunch as I was walking in to do the audition. And I just said, oh, that place has really great waffles. It just so happened I knew the place. And I know it's lunchtime, but like, who doesn't want to have a waffle? And so anyways, I got a call back. You guys, I cannot cook. I booked a commercial being a chef. Because they liked the conversation. And so sometimes you get a little, like you get too much in the weeds of something. You forget that like, actually you got to get through the door first. And to get through that door, you've got to be different. You got to do something differently than everyone else. This is so cool. Red ink. I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that story. You got to be a little different. The other thing, and this goes right into the keynote, is you got to have a way. I call it a frying the chickens, right? There's all these voices inside, but you can't do it. Oh, the odds are 1 in 20,000. How are you going to get that? And you got to fry them. You got to have ways to just get the voices inside. If you can't calm the voices and the negativity, the fear, the negativity, and the self-doubt inside of you, you're not going to be able to get there. And so I had to do that, and I've done that in multiple things. I was afraid to ask my wife out on a first date, and I had to calm that down. And oh, you're going to get friends on, and what I tell people is, there's a bigger chicken that you need to worry about than anything you're putting yourself out there, and that chicken is regret. You're lying on your deathbed and it didn't happen. I coulda, I shoulda, I woulda.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't give it my best. And that's the thing you need to be afraid of. Be afraid of having regrets at the end. And when you put it in that way, it's like, okay, that's a way worse thing a way bigger chicken. That's a turkey, a stork, right? Yeah. I need to be afraid of that. And I need to take care of those chickens that are holding me back from doing my best and hitting that goal.
Oh my gosh. I want to take a step back, but I love this. It's like you're talking about getting the voices down, because it can be your own or it could be others. And like 1 in 20,000 to me sounds very doable. It's like, it's way different than the lottery. Like I don't play the lottery because it's like, even when it gets really big, it's like, it's 1 in a 500,000 person chance. Like I can get struck by a plane first. Like not that I want to bring that on myself, but like truly. So but 1 in 20,000 sounds doable, but yes, it's your voice or the people around you. Cause you're going to have those negative people. Like I'm sure as you're studying and you're not getting further, I'm sure you had other people in your life where like, you're going to keep going, Phil, like just let this go.
And the thing was, I told everybody, you need to at least have an accountability partner for whatever you're doing. And that was, of course, my wife. But I told everybody. I'm like, and again, that was, I didn't want to have to go back to everybody later and say, well, I quit. And to your point, some of the people were kind of like, oh, okay, that's nice, patting you on the head. It's like, okay, I know you're someone I can't count on if I'm gonna, go all out for this goal. And other people are like, how can I help you? Right. And it was really good. And then I had somebody later go, everybody talked about those wild goals they could have. You did it. And it was like, I could tell, I didn't believe you, but you did it. And,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, I had this whole army of people. I felt like they were all behind me, but you're right. Some of them were like, right. But you got to know, right? Who's really got your back?
I think that's
And
so key. If and like also being really kind to yourself to protect yourself from going to those people who don't when you've got something going on. And I think we can slip into this like out of habit. Well, I always go to my sister about things, so I'm going to go. But if your sister, not my sister, but other people's sisters might be like the person who says the thing that you are most afraid of. Like, aren't you afraid of like wasting your time? Like that was a waste of money, like whatever. And like, you can go, oh, so if you haven't built the muscle up yet to protect your vision, your dream, your goal, you really have to make sure you are clear on who you're telling it to.
exactly, exactly. And a lot of times people, I don't want to sound sinister, but there's some people who don't want to see you get ahead because then it makes them look bad, right? Oh, you did this and I never had the nerve, right? So
Mhm.
they're going to pull you back down. I want to pull you back down to my level so that I don't have to do anything big. So
Yeah.
you just need to ignore those people and say, I'm going to find the people that are going to help pull me up.
I love that. So then what happens next? You put the red ink, you got the call back. How did it, what, I'm sure our listeners like, did he get on the show?
Oh, yes, he did. Yeah. So it was summer when I got the hey, you're in the contestant pool, and it was November, and I remember I was working out at the Y, and I didn't have a cell phone. This is pre-cell phone days. That's how long ago it was. And my wife called the Y and said he needs to call the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire contestant line back. They want him in New York. And like the Y is like, holy cow! And so they come and find me, and I tried calling them back, and eventually I connected with them, and they said, yeah, um, here's where you're going to fly. They flew you up at the time. They put you in the hotel, and here's how it's all going to work. And it's cool to come walking off the plane and have somebody with Mr. Barth on the thing. And your limo is ready, sir. And yes.
That's so fun.
I know, right? And so yeah, you spend a couple of days there because they shoot 4 episodes per day when they're shooting. So
Mm,
the first day, you're just in the green room, and they're telling you, look, unless we got a run of people who crap out, you're not going to get on today. But we just need to have enough contestants so that we can shoot the 4 shows.
right.
So first day, you just back there, you're making friends basically. Second day, okay, here's the order, and a new group comes in because just in case we all crap out. And so one at a time, and the green room is like 2 buildings away. They don't want any cheating, right? So
Wow.
you're in the green room, and all you're doing is talking or watching the show. And what happens is you've very quickly made friends with these people that you're in the room together with. And so you see somebody and you're like, I think it's seeing, and you're in the room going, no, don't say it. Don't say it. You're going to go home with $1,000. They final answer. You're like, oh man. Right. Or somebody else gets 6-figure payoff. And you're like, oh, that is so cool for this person.
Yeah.
So,
That's so fun.
yeah, eventually it's like, you're up. Right. And you're actually behind the scenes because they don't know when the person in the hot seat's going to stop. So then they bring you out and you talk with Meredith Vieira. And this is where the be it till you see it really helped me, because I saw myself in the hot seat looking at the questions, answering the questions, and being able to do this. And I over and over and over again, I practiced that. And so what happened was, I mean, I think you could really get freaked out, right? If you stop to think that a million people are going to watch a show, and this is real money, etc., you can get freaked out. So what I did was, before each question, she's asking it and the camera's on her, I closed my eyes for a second. And the thought was, as soon as I open my eyes, this is just like the practice at home. There's
Mm-hmm.
me, there's a question, there's nobody else. And it helped, and it calmed me down. And so I got on a roll. I asked the audience at like 4,000, I think, made it all the way to 32,000. And every time, this was where, fate lend me a hand. Every time the question came up, I knew the answer before I saw the choices. It just happened to
Mm.
be stuff I knew. I was like, yes. So it was over 2 days, because so it's like, okay, we're done with this show. You run to the dressing room, change your clothes, come back, and it's a new day because you've got a new outfit on, obviously.
Right, right, right. Same
and
audience, same, but yes, that's all. It's y'all. This is how the sausage is made.
this is it, right? Guess what? It was not the next day. but we came, come back on, and I had the $32,000 question, which I got. And then I had 2 lifelines for the $64,000 question. It was a free guess. Here's the backstory. When I was in high school, we had a quiz team that played other people in the greater Toledo, Ohio area. And all year long, my senior year, the advisor said, this team is really good, but we need somebody who knows Greek mythology. You, Barth, need to know Greek mythology. I'm like, I'm a senior in high school. Give me a break. And so I didn't study it. And we still made it to the Final Four. There was never a Greek mythology question. So I showed him, right? You know right now what the subject was of the $64,000 question.
Oh my gosh. No. And so you were done. You didn't have anything.
I had 2 lifelines. I not only didn't know Greek mythology, and that was the question, I hadn't made any friends who knew Greek mythology in the 20 years. And so I took a guess. The phone a friend didn't know it. 50-50 gave me a 50-50 shot, right? There were 2. I guessed the wrong one because it was a free guess.
Yeah.
Hey, I walked out with $32,000.
Right. And also like that's more than most people. Cause if you, like most people did drop out, they didn't make it past that 1,000. And so like all of your stuff, I think, obviously really helped you. I do have this question though, cause I always wondered, do they do that music and lighting like in there on you? Like, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's all I remember going, oh my God, the stress of that.
100%. And that's why I closed my eyes. And here's the deal. And I just remember thinking this, like, holy cow. At $64,000, they take it down a notch. I mean, you can see nothing but you and Meredith Veer. I was like, I'm thinking as the question goes, holy crap, it got really dark in here because they don't want any kind of signals from the audience, all the game show scandals, all that. 64 grand is considered like real money, and it is. Yeah. And so it gets really dark, and the music is there, and the horn when it goes off, that's all how it is.
Oh my goodness. So, okay, devastation that you missed that question, but you did get 32,000, which is like amazing. So after all this time, I'm imagining at least over a year of your life, like preparing yourself to be on this show. What happens next? Like, did you have like a hangover from like that, like all the expectations that you had for it? Did you move on to another thing? What ended up being the next thing for you?
I love that question. I know the answer, but nobody's ever asked me that. That is an awesome question.
Thanks.
So immediate disappointment for if only I'd say Greek mythology, right? And when I called, because that quiz team advisor was one of my phone a friend possibilities, he said, I would have laughed at you for 30 seconds. I don't know Greek mythology. I just told you needed to learn it. But anyway, disappointment, right? Disappointment. And I'm like, oh crap, I'm beating myself up. My wife comes back and she goes, we just got $32,000. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I don't need to be disappointed, right? So yeah, there's that. It was actually a 3-year quest from 99 till 2002. So there is that, like, oh, what am I going to do next for a little bit? And what happened was a while later, a friend of mine came into my office at work. He said, hey, you want to run a triathlon with me? I'm like, hey, you want to go get drug checked? But I did it. So
you did a triathlon after that. You just like moved on to a new thing.
Eventually the new thing presented itself, and it was a mini triathlon.
That's good.
6 miles rowing. Yeah, it was nothing. 6 miles rowing, 6 miles running, 18 bike. But and so it's like in the back of your mind. Okay, I have had a couple of really big ideas. Number one, asking my wife out when I was nervous as hell. Number two, the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Okay, I'm gonna try a triathlon, and so yeah, eventually your next BOHAG presents itself. Now, what I tell people is, you may not find the BOHAG right then, so look for a LOHAG or some little old hairy ass goals, right? Something little,
yeah,
right? And make those little check marks and get a victory log, write it down, put it in there. A couple years ago, I got frustrated with my favorite football team, like I do every year, the Cleveland Browns. but anyway, they were in the middle of a suck streak, and I said, this year's going to be different. And normally I make it through the first half of the first game, and it was different. I made it through the first quarter. It's just like, no. And so I told my wife, I said, look, every Sunday from here on out, I'm not going to watch football. She's like, right. I said, no, I'm not. Every Sunday afternoon, we're going to have a little project, and we're going to do something together, and in some way make our house, our family, whatever, better. So a whole series of LOHAGs. And I mean to tell you, and this was 2019. So again, fate's going to play a hand. We repainted the basement, and then I built a home office just because I wanted to have a home office in the basement. I'm upstairs right now, but I have a home office in the basement.
Yeah.
Pre-pandemic, we just happened to put together a nice home office in the basement.
That
Rather
is
be lucky than good.
amazing.
But I mean, every week it was this little thing. It just checked it off. It's like, that is so cool.
I think that's amazing because I think people get a little like they get down on themselves when they can't think of what they want to do in a year, when they can't think of what they want to be in 10 years. Like there's some people who just like have this block around it and like, I have to figure this out. And it's like something like, I got to figure my purpose is. And it's like, what if you, like, if it's that hard and if it's stressing you out that much, what if you just found something small to do? Like, what if you figure out which one to do in a month? And what if you want to figure out which one to say? So that's so cool. And I love that you guys did that also. Good timing for that. But I just really think that like, what a great point to make, because it can be tricky if you're listening to this right now and you're like in a valley right now and you're like, I don't really know what my next thing is. It's like, well, then just pick a little thing that really interests you and try it out. Like, I think we forget that we can try things on for size. You know what I mean? Like we forget, like you used to go to the store, you used to load up a dressing room and used to try things on, come out, look at it and see if you liked it. Like you used to do that. Now we're like, I got to buy it online. It comes to me and I better like it. I got to ship it back.
Right. You know? Yeah.
So I think we forget that's an option. I love that so much. So, so I also want to highlight your wife celebrated with you, because I think a lot of times we do get disappointed in what we work so hard on if it doesn't meet the things we wanted. But if you have someone around you to help celebrate, it really does make it easier to move on to your next thing.
Yeah. And somebody to support you, because it took a fair amount of time to do all the studying and everything I wanted to do. And she supported me all the way. And the day of the Cleveland audition, I was getting ready to drive up there. I said, you know what? I'm not going to go. I've tried this. Why am I going up there? She said, get in the car and go. It's your dream. Go get it. And you know, that was the final push. That's
why we really do need to have a few good people around us to remind us, because we can get in our own way. It's so easy to get in your own way. Love that so much. So what are you, so now that you did the low hags, what are you working on right now? Like, what are you being until you see it right now? What's that look like?
A book. I wrote I don't know if we talked about the book, but I wrote a book. We call it a best sort of selling book. It's called Great Things Happen Every Day. And it's best sort of selling because when we put it out on Amazon, we put it out on the free Kindle book list. And in 5 days, thousands of copies. Right. And I remember waking up, I was in Seattle and I looked at the phone and I was like, holy crap, I did over 1,000 free copies yesterday. Right. And so it went, and that just blew me away. Well, it went to number 1 on the bestseller list of free Kindle books about stress management. And I said, is that a bestseller? You know, Kindle says yes, but my bank says no, because I sold thousands of copies, earned zeros of dollars. So I say it's a best sort of seller. Right. The next one.
I love that so much.
Everybody's saying they're a best-selling author. I ain't. I'm a best sort of selling. International, because somebody in Canada took one too. International best sort of selling author, right? You got to, but then I thought about it. I was like, okay, thousands of people have taken this book, and the book was to help people with their stress. Holy crap. That's a win, right?
It's a win.
It didn't get me a new convertible, but it's a win.
Yeah.
And so the next one is another book, and it's going to be called Fry Your Chickens. And it's what we've been talking about, and how to calm those voices inside, find your bow hag, try some low hags, etc. And just how to get the life you deserve. And I hope this one's a bestseller, but hey, if I'm a 2-time international bestseller selling author and a few thousand people read it, I'm good with that.
You know what? I think, I'm trying to think of the author, and it's not coming to my mind right now, but she got so famous off this one book, and she had written all these other books before. And everyone's like, oh my God, this is the best book. This is amazing. Like, how did you even get to writing this best-selling book? And she's like, well, I wrote 4 other books that very few people bought. And she's like, they're actually selling really well now because people like this book. But like, this isn't my first rodeo. Like I did a bunch of other ones. And I do love that. I think, It's so hard. Doesn't matter how old we are or what we've gone through. It's so hard to remind yourself that like no one's an overnight success. That's 10 years of work that got them to where it is. And you know what? Um, I think when you say you're a best sort of selling author, it actually makes people listen. They're like, it's like, wait, what did she just say? All right, Phil. So where can people find you, follow you, get your amazing best sort of selling book?
So easiest place is just go to www.philbarth.com. I love the website. All I did was write a check, so it's good. If I had developed it, I know I'm in IT, but no. But philbarth.com. It's also available on Amazon, and those are the easiest ways. I'm on Facebook. He flaked for a second. YouTube, but all of the links come off of philbarth.com.
Perfect. That's so easy. And then is that where people can find your book?
Yes. Yeah, it'll take you to the Amazon page to get it. Or philbarthbooks.com will take you right to my author page.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, before I let you go, bold, executable, intrinsic targeted steps people can take to be it till they see it. What do you have for us?
Okay, so here's the ones, and everybody talks about having a bucket list, and you need to, but you also need to have, and it was an Irish guy that introduced it to me, and they always say this: you need to have a bucket list. Things things that you no longer want, that are not serving you, things you no longer want to be, things you no longer want to do, things you no longer want to have. And if you don't like that word, you can call it a chucket list, because I have a whiteboard in my home office and I've got this big old volcano drawn, and then I just list, here are the things that I'm going to chuck into the volcano.
Oh, I love this.
You need to make room for what's on the bucket list and for the next bowhag, so that you can throw yourself at that one and not spend time. And everybody knows the things they do, that it's like, you look at it, and I do it too, right? Is playing this game on my phone really taking me to where I need to be? And nothing wrong with an occasional game, but what are you going to get rid of? What is no longer serving you, so that you can focus on the bowhag? That's the biggest one. The second one is, and this goes for stress, this goes for goals, you need to start your day right. There's a study done by Harvard University, Sean Aker. Google the study. They divided people into two groups: those who started their day with a negative news versus those who started their day with solution-focused news. 3 minutes was all it took. 27% more likely, the people with the bad news, 27% more likely to have a bad day. If you want to get after your bowhag, you need to start your day off positively. Pet the dogs, enjoy a cup of coffee, and read a book, meditate, a little exercise, yoga, something at the start of the day to get yourself off on the right foot, and you're going to be after that bowhag every time.
Oh, I love that. That's such an interesting, forgot about that study. That's such a great reminder. Because I do agree. Like, I think you could even if you're like, but I need to listen to the news. It's like, okay, great. But before you hit play, take 3 to 5 minutes to listen to something really good, so that you already have like something in there to combat that stuff, because it's so important to be informed, but sometimes that information can actually make you make decisions about your bowhag that the news has nothing to do with.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%.
Phil, you're such an amazing storyteller. I can't wait to read your next book. Fire Ticket. I will say this: you should look up. There's this bird. It's a bird in New Zealand. It's an extinct, but it looks almost like an ostrich dinosaur, and it can be the big bird that you're trying to like picture. Like, so you got to find it, because when I was in New Zealand, I went to the bird thing in Wellington. Sorry if my New Zealanders, you're like, Lesley, it's called this. It's a sanctuary, and it's amazing. I went to this tour, and they show this prehistoric bird that I'm so sad is gone, because it's pretty ugly, but it looks really fucking cool.
I'm going to totally look that up.
Yeah, just for pictures, just for people to pick the thing that they want to fry the chickens to get towards.
Yeah. Hey, you can fry this bird because it's already extinct. It's a bummer that it's extinct, but you're not really frying it. So, but it does. It gives you the visualization. I pulled stork out of the air. I guess ostrich is also pretty big.
Yes, there are big birds, and they run very fast. Everyone, their eggs are also very pretty.
Love it.
I know. Anyways, a fun fact that I know. Well, Phil, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Everyone, how are you going to use these tips in your life? Please share them with Phil, share them with the Be It Pod. Let us know and do us a huge favor. If you know someone who should be reading his book or who needs to be reminded of the story, you need to share this podcast with them. If you don't know how to do it on social, you can send it to them through a text message. You can send it to them an email. Like, we can help you. But it is so important that more people hear the good words from our guests and from you, people that they know, like, and trust. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, be it till you see it. That's all I got for this episode of the Be It Till You See It podcast. One thing that would help both myself and future listeners is for you to rate the show and leave a review. And follow or subscribe for free wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, make sure to introduce yourself over at the Be It Pod on Instagram. I would love to know more about you. Share this episode with whoever you think needs to hear it. Help us and others be it till you see it. Have an awesome day. Be It Till You See It is a production of As the Crows Fly Media.
It's written, produced, filmed, and recorded by your host, Lesley Logan, and me, Brad Crowell. Our associate producer is Amanda Fratarelli.
Kevin Perez at Disenyo handles all of our audio editing.
Our theme music is by Ali at Apex Production Music, and our branding by designer and artist Gianfranco Cioffi.
Special thanks to our designer Jaira Mandal for creating all of our visuals, which you can't see because this is a podcast, and our digital producer Jay Perdoso for editing all the video each week so you can.
And to Angelina Herrico for transcribing each of our episodes so you can find them on our website. And finally, to Meredith Crowell for keeping us all on point and on time.